where our emotions come from. How do we actually feel emotions? Are physiological reasons or physical reasons responsible for our emotions? This is exactly what the James Lange theory of emotions talks about. According to this theory, witnessing an external stimulus, environmental stimulus, leads to a physiological or a physical response first, and our emotional reaction depends on how we interpret these physical reactions. It was given by William James and another psychologist called Carl Lange separately, independently. Okay, let's understand this theory with an example. Suppose we are walking, okay, on the road and we see a snake at the side of the road. We'll feel fear, right? We'll be afraid of that snake. But William James and Carl Lange's theory says that first our heartbeat increases. Okay, there are physical changes in our body. We begin to tremble, and as a result of those physical changes and the interpretation of those physical changes, what our brain does, because of that, we are actually frightened. So, we experience emotions as a result of the physiological changes that are happening in our body. William James explained this that the bodily changes follow directly the perception of the exciting fact, and our feeling of the same changes as they occur is that emotion. Okay, for example, many times it happens that when we are walking in the dark and when we are alone, we feel someone is behind us and we feel fear. So what William James and Lang theory says that first physical reactions are aroused. Our body responds to those external stimuli, and as a result of the physical changes, we see or we experience the emotion of fear. Okay, so James and Lang, both of them believed that it was possible to imagine experiencing an emotion, okay, such as fear or anger, and that imagined version of the emotion would be flat facsimile of the real feeling. Okay, why? Because without the actual physiological response which precipitated the emotions, it would be impossible to experience these emotions on demand. So prior to the James Lange theory, the standard line of thought was that people, okay, they first experience or they react cognitively to the stimuli, and physical responses follow the emotions. But James Lange approach reversed this. They said that first we experience physiological responses and they play a role in the experience of emotions. So it might seem like a very small difference, in the sequence of events, but no, it was a very, very influential theory. However, this theory was not without its critics. German psychologist William Wundt was the first one to critique this theory. He said that emotions were a primal, hardwired sensory response. Many other researchers also challenged the viewpoint of James and Lange. Most important of them was the Cannon-Bard theory of emotion. Okay, Cannon and Bard's theory suggested that our physiological reactions, for example, when we are sad, when we experience sorrow, our physiological responses like crying came later. The emotions actually came first. So it was absolutely reverse of the William James and Carl Lang theory. Most of the modern researchers point out many mistakes in the theory. Okay, there are many criticisms of the theory. So James and Lang presented some clinical findings to support their theory. However, the major criticism was that they based their theories upon ideas, okay, they based their theory on ideas that remotely resembled controlled experiments. That is, the James Lange theory did not indulge in any experiments. They proved their findings by their self observation. They didn't do any proper experiments for that. Many neuroscientists and neuroscience demonstrated many other flaws in the theory. For example, neuroscientists discovered that both animals and humans who had experienced major sensory losses, who were not in a position to react physiologically, even they were capable of experiencing emotions. We all know today that there are many diseases like motor neuron disease, okay, in which the patients are not able to move their body and physiologically they are not able to respond to different environmental stimuli, but still they are in a position to experience emotions, right? So these are the major flaws in the James Lange theory, which we have talked about. Another issue with the theory is that when we apply electrical stimulation to the brain, Okay, applying stimulation to the same site of brain does not lead to same emotions every single time. A person may have exact same physiological response to stimulus, yet experience an entirely different emotion. Just for example, when we see, let's say for example, we see something that is very that makes us quite afraid, like a horror movie, our heartbeat will increase. At the same time, if we are watching a romantic scene, our heartbeat will still increase. So the physiological reaction to both the environmental stimuli is same, but are our emotions same? No, we feel different emotions during both the during both the physiological responses. So the individual's existing mental state or cues in the environment, they all play a role in the emotional response. But the James Lange theory also has certain support, or it is also proven true in certain cases, right? So it is it is important even today. So introduction of new technology has allowed us to understand, to get the better understanding of our brain and how our body responds, right? So for example, there was a very classic study which was published in 1990 which provided certain support to the James Lange theory. Okay, so the experiment was very interesting. People were asked, the subjects in the experiment were asked to conduct certain facial expressions, to make facial expressions artificially for different emotions like sorrow, anger, etc., right? Fear. And it was observed that when they make the facial expressions, okay, there was slight psychological reaction as well. So it was observed that because of the physiological response that they gave, even though it was artificial, it still elicited a psychological or emotional response, right? There is some other evidence also in support of the brain scan studies. So when the brain was scanned, okay, it has been revealed that there are basic emotions elicit in the distinct patterns of activity in the neural networks in the brain, right? Studies also suggest that the perception of internal physical states plays a role in how people experience emotions. One study, for example, found that participants who were more sensitive to the body's physical signals also experienced more negative emotions like anxiety. So, emotions, they are such a huge part of our lives that many psychologists have devoted their study, whole life study, to emotions. The James Lange theory, or the William James Lange theory of emotion, represent just one of the earliest theories. So while these theories like James Lange theory have been criticized over the years, but still they exert a very great influence today on the psychological world, along with the Cannon bar theory of emotion. Many researchers today would suggest that our emotions are a result of our physical reactions. Okay, our emotional reactions are instead modified by both physiological reactions and other information. That is the conclusion that most of the psychologists have reached today. Thank you so much for listening to the video. I'll be back with more such interesting videos in the future.